Hello, happy Friday, happy St. Patty's Day. Thanks all for joining Automation Hour. All right, so for those who are new joining us, we try and meet every other Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern. We do have an exception for this month. So our next session will be next week with Martin Bristow, and then we have also published here our speakers for the next 3 months. So we're excited to have various variety of speakers, and they will be presenting on different skill set levels. So we do have a bunch of additional beginner sessions that will be coming in the months of April, May, and June as well. We do currently have an open slot for June 16th. So if you're out there and you have a really cool process automation solution, do submit one, and that presenter slot can go to you. All right, so logistics-wise, all lines are muted. If you have questions throughout the presentation, post to the questions section, and we will be pausing at certain points in the presentation. So your questions could be on Stuart's presentation or any process automation questions that you have in general. So if we don't get to all your questions, we will continue on in the success community, and that's Salesforce Automation Hour, and we will be posting the recording out on our YouTube channel and posting that on our website, automationhour.com. All right, so I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Concrete.io, and your guest hosts, myself, Jennifer Lee, Rakesh Gupta, and David Litton. And if you are going to be at Southeast Streaming, that will be in 2 weeks. The team will be out there, so I have a session, David and Rakesh have a joint session, so definitely come out and stop by and say hi. And with that, I am very excited. We're very excited to have Stuart on. For those who are out on Twitter, Stuart is a member of the GIF squad. He has also participated in the BA panel at Dreamforce. So we're excited for the session because we have received feedback from some of you who have attended this automation hour that you really wanted to get more content that is geared towards the beginner. So we hope that you enjoy the content that Stuart will be presenting today, and we do look forward to hearing from you in terms of feedback after the session as to how this went and how we can continue to deliver great content to you going forward. So with that, I am going to hand this off to Stuart.
Thank you, Jen. All right, the one thing I'll point out of this on my profile is a new thing on here, the AOIT. This is the Academy of Information Technology at our local high school, and I am getting involved in more educational things, and I just wanted to point that out. So today what we're going to do, we are going to have a little beginner series on Process Builder. I'm going to spend a little bit of time understanding my process. I'm a business systems analyst. I've been a business systems analyst for about 20 years, and so I will inject a little bit of BA talk into my session today. We're going to understand the problem scenario that we're trying to resolve, which here is a hint, it's opportunity naming conventions. Then we're going to dive in to use Process Builder to resolve that problem, and we're going to test the solution and open up for questions, although you can ask questions at any time during the presentation. So I talk about my process as a business systems analyst. I think about design thinking. Design thinking is around really the user experience. What is the user experiencing and what sort of pain do they have? I have 3 steps that are part of this. The first one is observation and empathize. You may have heard Mike Gerhold, who works at Salesforce, talk about SABWA, which is Salesforce Administration by Walking Around. I like to take that a little bit further as a business analyst. I like to actually embed myself into the department or into the group that's having the problem or requesting a new feature or functionality. Many times I've gone to a department head or a director and said, can I be your employee for such a time that I can learn what your employees do, what your staff does, and the sort of actions they take. So this is active observation. I will shadow people that are using the product and embed myself into that world as much as I can. I think that empathy is one of the things that business analysts need, and I think that Salesforce admins, whatever your role, if you're a Salesforce admin, empathy is a really strong key role to have. Once you understand the problem, then it's a matter of prototyping and design. I like to start with paper or whiteboard. Starting with something that's destructible helps because you may be redesigning and reprototyping often, especially in the beginning. When you think about designing anything, whether it be Process Builder or other tools, I also like to look at three lenses: business value, technical feasibility, and customer experience. So with all of these three things, you can be pretty confident that your product will be used. If it's a good business value and it's technically feasible, but the customer experience is lousy, users won't use it. Same with if it has business value and a good customer experience, but it's just technically not feasible, also it's just not a good solution. So when I think of the solution that I'm designing, I look at those three lenses. Once you've agreed on a prototype, a design, then you can go through the build and test. And one of the things about building and testing is communication. It's important to be transparent. It's important to communicate with the users of, this is what it's going to look like when you get it. This is what it's going to feel like. It's important also to fail fast and fail early. I have fail often here, but really, if you fail early, that's okay, because you can still redesign, you can configure different things, and Salesforce is the type of product that lets you do configuration really quickly. And did I mention, please communicate, communicate, communicate. So let's talk about automation. As a beginner series, I just want to lay the ground of what is automation from my perspective. Automation is anything that saves time and labor, that improves quality, and it allows for my users to do the things that they're good at, the smart things, the things that maybe require a little bit more maturity or thought, and it allows the system to do the repetitive things. I have many times where, as embedding myself in a department and shadowing my users, I'll watch users click through 12 pages of information in order to change one thing and submit one request. It drives me crazy. Users shouldn't have to go through these repetitive pieces in order to do the job that they were hired to do. So that's the backdrop I think about when I think about Process Builder. However, in Salesforce, there is more than just Process Builder. When I think of automation, again, anything that saves time, money, and labor, I think about everything from field level things. There's things out of the box in Salesforce that will help to automate users' experience. Formula fields that you can build, roll-up fields, maybe using lookup fields to find information on other objects. And you can set up default values. There's things out of the box when you get Sales and Service Cloud, things like validation rules, things like in the console you can build macros and templates for email. And you can do quick actions. You can build actions and apply those to links and buttons that just make it easier for the users. Other things that we've talked about here in Automation Hour, Process Builder, workflow, workflow rules, and approval processes. Then there's third-party apps that also help with automation. You can find tools on the App Exchange. There's integrations and tools that will help with data, and also services like data.com. Again, in my mind, these are tools that help with saving time and resources, and to me, they are a bit of automation. There are code-based automations as well, that I haven't had a time to really look at, but there are triggers, Apex code, and even Heroku forms that you can build. Today we're going to talk about Process Builder, but there is one thing that I also need to mention that's an out-of-the-box Salesforce thing that will help to really describe what we're doing, and that's opportunity record types. I briefly want to just explain what a record type is. So an opportunity record type allows us to customize our opportunities based on different flavors of records. We can tailor these record types to have custom page layouts, custom pick lists. We can customize the sales process, and we can assign unique profiles to those specific record types. I encourage you, there's a link that I'll include in the notes I'll send to Jen when we're done here, Shell Black whiteboard videos. One of them, and the link here, is all about record types. It's really good. I work at TPT. We are Twin Cities Public Broadcasting. We're a member of the PBS network, and we use opportunity record types in these ways. So we will have different groups, different users using different record types. They're all opportunities. They all end up in the opportunity object, but our different groups would be our foundation and government grant groups. They'll create grant opportunities. It'll have a different page layout, a different set of sales process. Then the membership group, they get money from individual donors, and they will create pledge opportunity record types. We have a sponsorship group that does corporate underwriting for certain programming, and they'll create a sponsorship record type, so on and so on. We have major donors that we ask for proposals from. And we do have our productions team will work with other organizations to create on-air content, and that will end up as a production record type. This last one is very important. This is payment. This is real money that we get. We store all of the actual payments as a payment record type, and all users plus finance use this, and those are the actual payment transactions from any of these commitments to pay. So when you think about a pledge, if you pledge to give money to us, that isn't necessarily money right today, but that might be a pledge to pay over time or sometime in the future. Once we get the payment from that, then that completes that pledge to pay. So there's a relationship here with these different record types. On the left, you'll see all the different promises for future payment, the grants and the proposals and the pledges. And then on the right, you'll see the real dollars that come in, the payments. There is a relationship to these. I call it a parent-child relationship. The parents are the commitments to pay, and the children are those individual payments that will complete that pledge. This is important because we're going to use Process Builder to look at that link between the parent and the child. All right. So what's the problem? Now that you know how we use record types and how our different departments use opportunities, there needs to be a problem that we're solving. The problem is this. I have a report here that shows all of the opportunities that we have open right now. And I have some issues because finance is going in and asking which payments have been, or which opportunities have payments on them. And because we just named them whatever we wanted to, there is a payment here. So the Jennifer Lee Foundation made a payment that is for this opportunity. But I have 3 things called opportunity. I'm lost already. We also have an account that doesn't even have a name that has some payments on it. This is sort of ridiculous. Well, this is a problem for finance and for the users. They can't find their payments. So after going through the process of meeting with all the users and embedding myself and seeing how they do it, I see that we need to have a naming convention. We could train our users to do the naming convention, but what we're going to do today is actually automate it so that the users don't need to care. They can type in anything for the name of the opportunity, and it's going to name it based on these rules that we're giving it. The rules are that if it's a parent, if it's not a payment, then it's going to get a specific naming convention, which is account name plus record type plus the date. And this is going to be close date on the opportunity. For the children, which is that payment, it's going to have a little bit different convention, and that's going to be that it inherits the parent name plus the record type plus the created date. These are the rules that the users have agreed to, and so we're going to use this when we're creating our process builder. As a BA, I've documented the problem statements and the solutions. Users can't find their opportunities, and finance cannot tell if commitments to pay have been paid. And then here are the requirements. Have them written out so that when I go to build, that they're handy for me. Before I dive in, I will also include this with the slides. These are all references that I use to help build my demo, spots out there on the internet that will help you if you get stuck or need more examples of how to use Process Builder. All right, so enough of me talking about slides, and we're going to go straight into a demonstration. All right, here is my test org. And one note is I'm not going to do this in my production org. I actually have a test org here that I'm using for this test. And here's the examples that I was having problems with. So I am going to open up Process Builder. I do that by clicking on this gear icon and choosing Setup. Now I am using the Lightning experience, and if you're using Classic, you may find Process Builder in a different place, but there's one key to that, and that you've got a quick find in your setup either way. I know that Process Builder lives under Process Automation in Lightning, and here it is. If I can't find it though, I can type in Process Builder and click on that. It's going to first load all of the processes that I have built. I have one test that I did that's inactive, so I am actually going to click on New to create a new process. I like to give it a specific name, naming convention for me, because if I ever have dozens of processes, which is possible, I need to be able to quickly find this process. And so I like to use the name of the object that I'm updating, and then what it is. It's going to give it an API name, and then for description, I have another little thing that I do, which is include my name in it. If you ever are in an organization that has multiple administrators, it's kind of nice to know who it was that built this. So let's call it automatically naming opportunities. Pardon my spelling. And then I'll put my name on it. It'll ask us how this begins. So does it begin when a record changes or if it's invoked? We're not invoking any other process. We're actually creating opportunities here. And so that creation of an opportunity record is what is going to start this process. All right, as a business analyst, I like what I see because it looks a lot like Visio, and I've created a lot of Visio documents. So it looks like I start here, and I'm going to add an object. This is the object that is going to start our process. And the object that we're dealing with here is opportunity. And I want to run this only when a record is created because I want to give my users the ability to change this if needed after the record is created. If you want to always maintain that naming convention no matter what, then you can choose this when the record is created or edited. I'm just going to leave it as created. Once we've chosen the object that starts this, this process, then we're going to add the criteria. So this is saying, when does this happen? And when I think back on my notes, so there are two different record types, and we're going to actually use that to say, when does this happen? So the first one is going to be that this is not a payment. I'm going to go back to my slides just to confirm to myself that, yep, that's what I wanted. Yeah, so that's what I want. So I have two different scenarios that are going to be two different branches to my process builder. One where it's not a payment up here, and one where it is a payment. So not a payment. And what does that mean to me? That means that the record type is not a payment record type. And I'm going to use the name. And it does not equal the string of payment. So what I'm basically saying here is that, and I'll click it again, looking at the opportunity, the record type is actually a related object. And so by this, I'm kind of saying, look up the record type ID and show me the name. So this name should be either payment, pledge, production, other types of things. And I'm telling it that it does not equal, I could choose equals, starts with, contains, and it does not equal payment. So this opportunity record type is going to be anything other than my payment type. And I will save this and review what I've done. So I have an opportunity. If the opportunity record type is not a payment, then I'm going to do an action. And that action, again, based on my notes, is I'm going to update the name. I can do several different actions here. For right now, I'm going to update the record, which is updating the name field of that record. Process Builder does let us do a bunch of other things like post to chat or create another record, send out alerts, and even can issue another flow or another process. For this one here, I'm actually going to just be updating the name. It'll ask me to select the record to update. I am updating the record that I've just created. I could update a record that's related to that opportunity, but we're going to just leave it at opportunity at this point in time. And now we're going to tell it what value we're going to update. We're updating the name. And we are going to build a formula. Here's where I'm going back to my slide. So what I like to do is have notes next to me of what it is that I'm building. And in the formula, I just actually paste that. So this is my rule of what I want to build. I want to build the account name plus the record type plus the date. So Salesforce gives you these items right in the formula builder, inside of Process Builder, and so you can select the field that you want to choose. The first one is the account name. And again, the account name is going to be in the account object, so I'm going to look it up. I'm going to use this account ID lookup and find the name of the account. All right, it's got that selected. And now I'll choose the next thing. Well, the next thing is, actually, it's going to be a space. Salesforce does give us the ability to concatenate information, and so I'm actually going to open up this operator and choose concatenate. Oh, did it in the wrong space, sorry. Put it in the right space here. So I'm concatenating a space, and what I did was a double quote, space, double quote. That will actually put the string of a space in there, and another concatenate, and now I'm going to put in my record type. Again, record type is a field that's associated to this opportunity. So I'm going to look it up here is a link to the record type object, and I'm going to put in the name. I'll concatenate one more piece of information, and that is the date, and I believe that we agreed on close date, which is just a field that's part of that opportunity. Okay, close date. Where did you go? Okay, because I'm clicking around in there. That's one of the problems. So I've moved it to the right place. I checked what formula I want to make. I wanted to make account name plus record type plus date, and that is what I've built. Account name, record type name, and the close date. I'll remember to delete this extra stuff, and I will use this formula as the new name. And I'm going to hit save. Oh, well, I got an error. The formula expression is invalid, incorrect parameter type for operator. Expected text received date. Well, I put in a date. Okay. So let's go back in to this formula and see what I did. Well, sure enough, there's my close date. Here's a little trick. When I pick my fields, and I'm going to pick my fields again, this field, sorry, the field that I'm changing, this name field, is a text field. And let's make sure, so if I add that close date is not a text field, it's actually the type of date. It's a different type. So I need to do something to change this so that it becomes part of a text field. Salesforce gives us that ability through these functions. If you look at the function list, there's all sorts of functions. There's date and time functions, math functions, and text functions. What I'm going to choose here, and you'll see there's a bunch of different functions out of the box that they give you for your formula. What I'm going to choose is text. What this function does is it turns any value into a text string. And here is that. I'm going to move it into the right spot here. I still want close date. Close date is the value that's going to be in that string. And now I've wrapped it into a text function. I'm going to ask it to use that formula and hit save. And now it's saved that action. So I have one branch completed. This is for anything that's not a payment. It's going to update its name with that formula that I agreed on with my users. And Jen, I can stop here if there are any questions so far. We have one more branch to build, and that's of if it is a payment.
Sure. So there is one question from Missy, and Missy, I do want to thank you for promoting this automation hour. Her question is, what tips do you have for observing without being too disruptive?
Yeah, so definitely I like to shadow my users. I'll ask them, communication is key because a lot of times when you ask users if you can shadow them, the first reaction is fear. Are you trying to take my job? Are you trying to judge what I'm doing? And it's really not that. So I try and first communicate to them that what I'm doing is just trying to observe any issues you have with the software, things that you would like to have improved, to give them a method to really communicate back to me and say, oh, I get to be part of this process. You're not just watching me, you're actually trying to help me. So I am trying to observe and shadow. At some point in time, though, I will be a little bit disruptive in asking why. So after they've completed a process, or after they've helped a customer, or after they've created an opportunity in this example, I might ask them, can we stop for a moment and just, I want to ask you some questions about why did you do this? Why did you choose that? And trying to be in a comfortable way, not in an attacking way. So there is a fine line, though. Some people may take offense to me shadowing them, but I really try and include them in that process. All right. I will move on to the next step of my process here, and that is to tell Salesforce what to do if this is a payment. And again, we had some rules around this. One of the rules was to give it the naming convention, but we also had some other things on there. One was to make sure that the account that it's associated to is correct, and that all payments come in need to be closed, because we got the money, and so that payment opportunity should be closed won when we create it. So using the same opportunity, if it's not a payment, then it probably is a payment. So this criteria is going to be, this is a payment. And it's going to ask me what conditions is this true. So what makes it a payment? And again, it is the record type of payment. So I'll look up the name from the record type object, and it has to equal the word payment. That is what we're looking for. Okay, that's fairly straightforward. Then if it is a payment, what actions are we going to take? Again, we're going to update the record. Owner, not owner. Let's just call it account. Again, we're going to select the opportunity record that started this process. We're actually updating this record, not some other record. And the actions that we want to take are, and we'll start with stage first. So we said that the stage always has to be closed won. And so when you're choosing a pick list, Salesforce will actually say, oh, what pick list do you want? Instead of a string here, it normally would say string if it's a text field, and it's saying pick list if it's a pick list field. So we're going to always make it closed won. We're going to have the account ID. And here's where, okay, we could put an ID in, but I don't know the ID. It's going to be whatever the parent was. So we're going to reference another field in that object. So we do have an item in here called parent opportunity. Parent opportunity has an account ID, and actually I don't even, it's not a reference that I'm doing here, sorry. It is just to find the account ID. I'm not referring anything on that object. I just want the ID of that account to go into that field. So I'll choose that. So what this is saying is that the account ID of this child, of this payment, is going to be pulled from the parent ID, which is the pledge or the grant or whatever was built as the commitment. And then the last thing I want to do is to change the name. And again, I don't have a specific string. I actually want to build it based on items in the opportunity. And so through that, I'll build a formula. And again, I like to do this, which is to grab the agreed upon rules and then build it underneath here. So parent name, and again, I look at the parent opportunity and find the name. And I'm going to build a space in between these fields and grab the record type. This should always say payment, so I actually could just type in payment there, but I will look up the record type here as well. And I'll put in a space for a filler there. And then the last item is created date. And I know, okay, I made this mistake before. Created date is a date field, and so I actually need to put it inside of a text function because the name field is a text field. So I have a text function that's going to wrap this value, and the value is the created date. All right, so parent name, record type, and created date. I have the parent opportunity name, the record type name, and the created date inside of a text function. These should be correct. Although when I did this morning, of course, it failed for some reason, and hope it won't fail here. Use this formula. Now I have all of the rules set up, and I'm going to save. And yeah, this is what it did to me before. So, quickly fix that. Sorry about this. Oh, that's why. I have this word value in here. So I forgot to delete that function puts value in there, and I need to remove that. So this is the value that it's using. Sorry about that. Mistakes are good, unless you're trying to do them in front of an audience. Okay, so now I did that. So if it's a payment, it's going to do several actions here, and we are ready to activate it and test it. And before we activate it, I can answer another question.
All right, so we have one from Rachel. When you are creating process builders that invoke flows that then trigger workflows or process builders, how do you ensure you don't hit governor limits? How do you plan an automation when using multiple declarative automation tools? Best practices from your perspective.
Well, I can give you some tips for the second part of the question. For the first part of the question, I might have some of our hosts help to answer that. There are things that I do if there are multiple automations happening. So in my organization, for example, we have a managed package that does certain code. There's Apex code that runs on opportunities as they're being built. And so to get around that, I still want to do my actions, but I don't necessarily have to do them immediately. I can, in those instances, I can set a schedule. So I could do this updating name action, but I could do it later. So I still allow the managed package and all the Apex code to happen real time, but then I will tell Process Builder, and usually it's 1 hour. 1 hour is enough time to let that happen. So I'll do it 1 hour after created date, set a scheduled action to then update the name. And I do that quite a bit with my process builders. I will actually schedule it for an hour out just so that I don't interrupt any of the triggers or automations that are happening real time as opportunities are being created. Now for hitting the limits, I don't know if Jen or if you have any comments or anyone else has a comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to understanding everything around what your particular object is trying to do, and when, as Stuart mentioned, when do all the events need to happen? Because there's certain events that can happen as a scheduled action that don't have to happen on the actual transaction, and that reduces the amount of actions that have to happen every time you hit save. Even if you might still be technically like under the limits, if you have too much going on in the background, you maybe have noticed if you've had multiple processes on one record that it takes sometimes a second or two to see that save kind of finish. If you got a lot of records creating, and then maybe those hit other process builders on that other object. So just kind of taking that all into account and being really precise with the criteria that you write so that none of these actions fire off unless they should fire off. There's certain limits that you can't really get around. They've made a lot of improvements to the governor limits, so I don't really worry too much about if my flow or process builder is going to hit a limit unless I've got tons and tons of automation on one object, and then that's when you just have to be careful and thoroughly test even more when it's an object like opportunity. I think is one of the ones that you have a lot on typically. So there's not a good tool, I wish there was, that said how close you were to hitting a limit, just because there's so many different decisions that a record can go down through in flow and process builder. But it's just trying to limit when the process builder actions and Apex actions and every other kind of action you might have when it happens. And if you can limit that to keep it as precise as possible, that normally helps.
All right, I'm going to activate this. When you activate it, it's going to let you know that this will be the active version of this process, and it's active now. So this is the moment of truth where this should let me now create an opportunity, and it should name it based on the rules that we set. So I'll create a new opportunity here, and say it's going to be a membership pledge, and I would never do that. I would never show a user that, but that's what I typed for the opportunity name, just to prove that it will get a real name upon save. And we got a large pledge here from somebody named David Litton, and he's gonna pay that by the end of the month, he says. And so right now This really wouldn't be the stages that we use, but that's okay. So we'll save that. And the opportunity name was, it doesn't matter what I type in, and now it's created a new name, or it updated the name to David Litton Membership, and it gave it the date in a text that is actually the way our dates are, but it's put it into that text field. So now I should be able to create a payment. And the nice thing about this is in Lightning, it will show me the name here, which is obvious. Okay, this is the parent, so I'm going to pay on this membership. And first payment is there. And again, shouldn't matter what I type in here if my automation works. And we'll say it was paid on April 7th. And this also should be closed won, but if I forgot as a user, forgot it's closed won, and I didn't put an account in here because I'm being lazy, so I'll save this. I created that payment record, and it gave it the name that we said. So the first part of it is the parent opportunity name, what record type it is, and then the date. And so created date is a date timestamp. We can put a function around that as well to remove the time if we wish. I'm not bothered by it today. But it also should show us that it did the other things. Oh, yep, it did. So it changed the stage to closed won, and it made the account the David Litton account. Now, if I go into my giving report, perfect. So now when any user or finance looks at this report, they'll see, yep, sure enough, there is an account here that has two opportunities. One is the membership opportunity, the pledge to pay, and then underneath that is the actual payment. And then from that, I can easily see, oh, this is how much is remaining to collect is 80,000. So this automation did work. Okay. Cool. All right. I'm ready for more questions.
Okay, we have one from Carlos. What if you create more than one opportunity for the name, account, record type, and close date?
Yeah, and so here's where you might need to then go back to the users. This is sort of version 1 of this, I guess, and we do this in Sandbox. We don't do it in production because of that. So what you might find is that you need additional information. So in our organization, after we built this, our users came and said, but I don't know what that is for. And so you have to kind of ask, well, what do you mean, what is that opportunity for? And they say, well, it's, we have specific campaigns that we're running. Well, we can certainly add the campaign name to this and add more information to that naming convention based on other pieces that we already know about that opportunity.
All right. Carlos further added, I would suggest adding time to the name. Andy had a question here. Since the name is not needed, is there any way to skip this field?
Name is not needed. Sorry.
We need to clarify.
Yeah.
Andy, can you further clarify as far as entering the data?
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, here's why I guess they wouldn't need to enter anything into that. I keep it. I'll keep it in the page layout, however, because if I ever need to go back in and say, oh, actually, I want to change this name, I will allow the users to change the name in the future. So yeah, it probably wouldn't have been even necessary for me to type in the words in the name, since I know that it's being automated anyway. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, and San had a question. Why does the stage not change to closed one?
Why does the payment change to closed one? So if someone is giving us a real check, which the payment is a real check or cash in hand, then it's always going to be closed one. For our finance department, they want to know what money have we actually received, and the way they do reporting on that is based on that a payment is closed one in their reporting. So you know, we'll still have future payments that our members may have committed to pay, you know, a certain amount of money. If they're a sustaining member, they'll pay in increments. But once we've actually received the payment, the credit card or the check or the cash, it's closed one. We don't have anything else to do. They've paid us the money. So it's just the business rule around what a payment is to us.
Okay, are there any other questions folks have as it relates to Stuart's presentation or some general automation questions? I'll just give it a few more minutes for folks to type. Okay, Missy has a question. I have trouble remembering what to do at each of the PB steps. Any tips?
So as far as the steps of you know, choosing, you know, first we choose what it is that starts the process. The rhombus shaped things here are what are the criteria that we're looking for as far as what do we look at for making a change, and then if it's true or false, those things, or let's see.
She said, for example, some of the more detailed actions like conditions.
Okay. So a lot of this for me, it goes back to understanding the documented rules. So for the conditions, you know, these are what fields have to be correct or have to be certain rules in order to move on to the next step. Boy, I'd love to have some help on answering this one. So remembering what to do with conditions.
So yeah, I mean, so the conditions, you've got two different areas that you can kind of update to filter when your action happens. The blue one inside of the criteria, and then you also, if you go click on the updating name immediate action, when you're doing a record update, We didn't put a filter there, but you also have criteria for updating records there as well. You want to try to avoid that when possible, unless you're doing a cross-object record update. That's when like you would probably use that, because you can't really reference fields inside of that first set of criteria. But if you're doing something like off of the opportunity record, you wouldn't put that filter here because you could have put it on the first one. And what the blue criteria does is it allows you to very specifically say when you want it to fire. So I sometimes will use the criteria are met if it's something pretty simple, like does the opportunity name need, like, or what's the one here, for payment. But you want to normally get very specific, and I'll use the formula evaluates to true probably 90% of the time, just because I feel like I've got full control over when it fires, and I can use, when the prior value was this and now the current value is that, and that way you only have it go and only send actions at the right times. But it's just kind of reviewing that, because you don't want your process accidentally sending an update twice or creating another record twice. So you just gotta, be very careful about when it fires.
Yeah, there's one other thing that I have to do often, and that's if I'm say updating, for example, updating the parent opportunity, the first thing I will check in this criteria is, does it exist? So if I'm trying to do an update on a field, I may actually just say one of the conditions is this field, is it null, false? So
yeah, I've just about every criteria that I put has that exact thing, and you always want to use that where possible if it's a related record, because unlike workflow rules, it doesn't automatically kind of take care of that. You have to make sure you do the is null check to make sure there's a value, because if you don't, then you could potentially run into a flow error or process builder error, and that also has to come before you start checking for values. So you've got to do that at the very front end. Otherwise, you'll still run into that error. And that's not very well documented anywhere. So it definitely is something that I think trips up a lot of people as they're building those process builders that start to do some complicated stuff cross-object.
Yeah, correct. So a lot of times you want to check to make sure, does that field actually have anything in it? Is it there? And then update that. In this scenario, it wouldn't necessarily need to be, but there have been a lot of scenarios where I have that I'm trying to change a record to find out that the record doesn't exist or doesn't have any information in it, and so I can't complete my my scenario.
All right, I don't see any other questions out there. Going once, going twice. All right. So thank you, Stuart, for your presentation. I do want to ask for the folks who attended today's session, when you get the email with the link to the feedback, we're really interested in what you thought about today's session. If that was helpful, if you want more of that in future sessions. So definitely provide that feedback to us. And with that, we're going to close this out and have a great weekend. We'll see you next Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.